Good Tuesday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller. Welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. It's gorgeous. Just an absolute great day to be alive. And I'll tell you what, anytime you are above the mud, you should rejoice and find some reason to be happy and some positivity in your life. We're alive. We're in America. We're breathing. There's positivity somewhere. Thank you so much for joining us. We're live in the Commonwealth, the country, in Charlottesville and Central Virginia on the I Love CVille Network. Richard Averitt is going to join us in T-minus 23 minutes to talk Atlantic Coast Pipeline, Nelson County, the fight against Dominion, but a Goliath that no doubt lurks in the distance in Warren Buffett, who spent basically $10 billion, $10 billion with a B, to take Dominion's position. It's you know, the more that I've had to think about this is a heavy hitter, undoubtedly. We're not out of the woods yet, so we'll talk about that with Richard Averitt. Dede Smith is going to join us. She'll join us in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll chat education. She is a champion, an ambassador for equitable education. We're at a crossroads that Americans, that Charlottesvillians, that Central Virginians have never been before when it comes to education. And it appears to me the haves are going to get a lot more than the have-nots when it comes to this school year. We're going to talk Harvard University going online only. Does this have any influence with Jim Ryan and the University of Virginia? This is the city of UVA. It's not the city of Charlottesville. It's the city of UVA. And I'm a UVA guy. University of Virginia likes to think of itself as an Ivy League school. We know it's a public school. We know it's not an Ivy League school, but that's the kind of conversation or group it would like to see itself in. This Harvard University going online only for this fall and the 2021 school year impact Thomas Jefferson's University and whether or not we'll see 25,000 kids in CVille in late August, early September. Guys, this is a huge freaking story. A huge story. We're going to talk COVID-19 vaccines and the government giving billions of dollars to a private company to fast track, $1.6 billion to be exact, to fast track warp speed a vaccine. We'll talk a third statue coming down in Richmond. Governor Ralph Northam is now asking Daniel Snyder and the Redskins to change their name. Restaurant chains, now we know who took the PPP money. P.F. Chang's took the PPP money. Ruby Tuesdays took the PPP money. Yeezy's company, yes, Kanye West, yes, the guy that's running for president, Yeezy's company took the PPP money. And guys, the United States of America is thinking about banning TikTok. That means you're not going to be able to use the app on your phone on American soil. A lot of headlines to get to on the I Love CVille Show. Again, I'm Jerry Miller. A lot of phenomenal clients on our roster. We're an advertising agency. 116 clients as of this morning from New Providence, New Jersey to Asheville, North Carolina. Two of our favorites, Judah Interstate Pest and Service Companies and Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. This morning on Real Talk, it's a show that airs on this network Tuesdays and Fridays at 10:15 a.m. It's an insider's look to real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness. Real Talk powered by the Yes Team Realtors. We welcome Interstate's Greg Wells, the owner of the company, the second generation owner of the business. It's a 4-generation strong family company. This guy crushed the interview. He's just a good guy, just a great guy that cares about the community and his team members. I'm so impressed with Interstate guys, and they're undoubtedly a home's best friend. And I'll tell you, how about a body's best friend? How about a human's best friend? And Scott Wagner, chiropractic care, physical therapy, sports medicine. Dr. Wagner is changing people's lives. Now, Judah Wickhauer is our director. Why don't we flash to the Judah Wickhauer camera? Say hello to everybody before we run headlines, Judah. Let's do that in 3, 2, and 1. Judah, we'll get you on screen. Say hello to everybody.
Hello. Nice to see you all.
Very good. Let's get to headlines, my friend. Harvard online only. You should be following this story, boys and girls. You should be following this story if you care about Charlottesville. You should be following this story if you care about the local economy. You should be following this story if you care about small businesses. You should be following this story if you don't want your real estate taxes to increase. You should be following this story if you care about schools. Harvard University will hold all of its undergraduate classes online this fall. It's going to invite 40% of its student body to its campus, guys. Only 40% of Harvard's student body will be allowed in school this fall. Most of them, a lot of them, are going to be first years. In fact, all first years will have the option to reside on Cambridge grounds. Let's be honest, if you're 18 and you just finished high school, there's nothing you'd rather do than go to college. If you're 18 and you've been living under your parents' roof for 18 years and you just got into Harvard University, of course you're going to go to Cambridge. Harvard is going to welcome the first years, the freshmen, to grounds in Cambridge. They're not going to welcome many more after that. They're trying to quarantine. They're trying to contain the spread of COVID-19, obviously. The crazy thing about this storyline is Harvard is not subsidizing or reducing tuition. It is shocking to me. So you can go to Harvard, you can get an online education in the 2021 school year from arguably one of the most prestigious universities in the world, and you're going to do it and you're going to still spend full rate card. And full rate card for 2021 at Harvard University is $49,653. I will repeat, $49,653. Guys, I'm a businessman. I make my money through multiple revenue streams. I own an advertising agency. We're growing a booming network. We own 20,000 square feet of commercial real estate, most of it in downtown Charlottesville, where we have 27 tenants, and we're very active from a stock trading standpoint to diversify revenue streams. Diversification is critically important in uncertain times. That's all I'm trying to do for my family and my employees. So I'm thinking about this as a cautious optimist that has significant experience as a businessman growing a few businesses. If Harvard University can do this, we are going to charge you full tuition for you to learn at our school through this anywhere you want. This is what is going to happen. Their profit margin is going to improve eventually from a virtual standpoint. You don't have to maintain your buildings on campus. You don't have the deterioration of buildings, electric bills, energy costs for maintaining campuses. How about humans for maintaining the campuses? Guys maintaining the structure. There's going to be less wear and tear. The profit margin, if they could get online education to happen at the collegiate level, and if they can maintain the same tuition rate, the profit margin will get fatter. A corporation can do two things in this scenario. Option A for Harvard is to pass the savings back on to the student. We're doing online education. It doesn't cost us as much to run our university. We're making more money. We could pass the savings on to the person. Guys, let's cut to the chase. Do you honestly think that's going to happen? No. You know what capitalistic corporations do in America? When they find savings and an opportunity to sweeten their profit margin, you know what they do? They keep the money. They keep the money. They keep the money. They keep the money. Harvard, $49,653. If they were truly committed to equitable, democratic education, the price break would have happened. They're not. They're running a business. I don't blame them. It's a business. So how does that pertain to Charlottesville? If you don't think that the Board of Visitors and Jim Ryan and the bigwigs at the University of Virginia are influenced by Harvard University. In fact, if you don't think colleges across and universities across America are influenced by Harvard, you're not living in reality. I can assure you when this news broke that Harvard was going online only, Jim Ryan and folks at Thomas Jefferson University and the Board of Visitors were like, oh, these dudes, the most prestigious university in America, is going online only? Well, that's leverage for us at UVA. And these dudes are doing it without offering a tuition break? Well, that's leverage for us at UVA. Can you imagine the college business model when you can open up to everybody in America? Yes, you have to be admitted into the University of Virginia, and they have high standards. But you can open up to anyone in the world. Someone in India can apply to UVA and learn online if they meet the standards of acceptance. You can conceivably have a 5x 10x, 15x increase in student enrollment. And if you can charge the same tuition as Harvard is trying to do, your business model just got that much more lucrative. So trepidations that I have that I'm going to throw to Dede Smith. If colleges do not cut their tuition, this makes education even less equitable and less democratic. I am literally being expected, if I'm a junior at Harvard and I don't get to go to school, most likely I would be living at home, sophomore or junior in college, you're most likely living at home with mom and dad. So this is what mom and dad just got saddled with at Harvard University. Are you ready? I'm going to spell it out for you. Are you ready? Harvard University said, guys, I'm not going to give you a break on price. It's going to be the same number. You can't come to Harvard. You have to learn wherever you want, probably mom and dad's house. So mom and dad are scratching their head and they're like, I have to pay the same number, and Johnny is living in his upstairs bedroom, and this dude eats me at a house and home. Johnny's and Laura are living in the upstairs bedrooms, and they're using the electric, they're using the internet, they're eating us out of house and home. My cost for the 2021 school year is actually higher now because Johnny is living at home learning. Or how about an even worse scenario for mom and dad? Johnny and Laura, who are sophomores and juniors in high school, they're used to living alone because they've been in college for a couple years. Johnny and Laura say, hell no, we're not going to go back to our childhood bedroom on the second floor of our house. Mom and dad, we want you to pay for an apartment for us. Mom and dads are getting screwed. And the rich stay in the know, and the middle and the poor class, where money is tough, are the ones that are getting shafted. This is the opposite of equitable education and the opposite of democratic education that's happening here. And boys and girls that are watching this program, mom and dads that are watching this program, small business owners that are watching this program, City Hall that I see watching the program right now, if the students don't return to grounds this fall, because UVA is influenced by Harvard University, if the students don't return to grounds and we don't have 25,000 people coming to this school in August or in September for the fall and spring semester, this is what's going to happen. The 2021 budget in Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville is going to get hammered even more. Okay? If you don't have 25,000 kids in Albemarle County in the city of Charlottesville using their mommy and daddy's credit cards, buying booze and buying food and buying gear and going to music events and going to the downtown mall and doing Ubers and all this other stuff where they're spending money. If you don't have that, you know what's going to happen? The 2021 fiscal year budget's going to get shafted even more. And we're already operating at a deficit in the city, and we're operating at a deficit in Albemarle County. So your schools are going to get hit even harder because of this. Albemarle County schools will be hit even harder because of this. And how can the schools that are already walking on eggshells, the schools that are already in a tremendously precarious position, the schools where the future is bleak, how can they get hit even harder? Well, you lose the tax revenue that comes from 25,000 students coming to Charlottesville. That's how they get hit even harder, and that stinks. And how is this going to impact you? How's this going to impact you as a homeowner in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, huh? You know what's going to happen? Your real estate taxes are going to go up. My real estate taxes are going to go up. They have to make up the budget deficit from somewhere. If the students don't come back, because Harvard's now influencing colleges across America, real estate taxes and the disposable income that we have in our pocket is going to be stretched even thinner. Mark that down. Those are facts. Facts, facts, facts. Next storyline. Judah Wickhauer goes to the school board meeting. Get the headline on screen. Put it on screen from the Daily Progress. What happened in the school board meeting yesterday? This is pretty much what I saw in the school board meeting yesterday, and we'll ask Dede Smith about this. I have so much empathy, and I feel so much sympathy. Maybe sympathy is a better word than empathy. Maybe sympathy is a better word than empathy here. I feel so much sympathy for the Charlottesville school board members. I don't even think, these folks, do they even get paid? I don't think they get, I think it's completely volunteer, okay? Do they even get paid? If they do, it's nothing. You have normal human beings, not politicians. You have normal human beings, not folks that make a living working for municipalities. You have normal human beings like you and me that are entrusted, that are expected, that are counted upon, that are held accountable for determining whether or not the 2021 city and county school year is going to happen in person or virtually. The school board members are literally saying, I don't know what to do. Literally in the newspaper saying, what is the right answer? There are none. You have normal citizens saying there is no clear path and we don't know what to do. That I take it back. I don't feel empathy for them. I'm sympathetic and I feel bad. I feel freaking bad. Okay? You have that I'm in conversation with the private schools in the area, whether it's the headmasters, whether it's people on boards or teachers themselves. They are all upticking in enrollment. They are all doing in-person education. They are pivoting their models to outside classrooms under big tents where they can leave their desks 6 feet apart, socially distanced, and they can leave the desk outside from day to day to day because they don't fear the ramifications of damage and people coming onto school grounds and destroying unprotected property. If you go to the Miller School, and Judah, we'll switch over here, baby boy. If you go to the Miller School in Crozet, a beautiful campus, you have to go up this long, windy road in the woods, in the mountains. You have to go through a gate that's locked. No one's going to the Miller School to vandalize desks and tents that are left outside from day to day so students can learn outside. But I can assure you, but I can promise you, but I can guarantee you, if you left them at Monticello, if you left them at Buford, if you left them at Albemarle High School, at Jackson Villa, at Johnson Village, at Cale, if you left them any school in the county or the city from a public standpoint because their lack of being off the beaten path. Blue Ridge is in Dike, Virginia. The Miller School is in deep in Crozet. Fuma's deep in Fluvanna County. Okay, the Covenant has got ample protection. The Covenant School, ample protection and security. St. Anne's Belfield, very much the same. They can leave the outdoor classrooms set up. The school board, and on the meeting yesterday, they said, we can't do outdoor classrooms. We can't do it. If we leave the stuff overnight, they'll get destroyed. What happens if it rains? How do we use technology outside? Just an example of the disadvantage, and it's no knock. It's just, it is what it is. So you have a bunch of normal people determining the future of a generation of children over a calendar year. Good night. Dede Smith in the 1 o'clock hour to help us make some clarity of this. We are at a crossroads that this country doesn't truly understand. I don't think they understand the magnitude of the crossroads where we're at, where education is, I'm shocked to say this, is becoming less equitable and less democratic and more for the elite. It's terrifying. Dede Smith to talk about this. Richard Averitt in 5 minutes. Let's go to the topic we're going to talk about with Richard Averitt in 5 minutes, Judah Wickower. Get the headline on screen. Guys, Nelson Countyans, Central Virginians, Charlottesvillians, Albemarle Countyans, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway buys Dominion Energy's natural gas assets for $10 billion. We went from Dominion Energy and the Atlantic Coast Pipeline in a natural gas asset war with Central Virginia to a guy in Warren Buffett. I'm going to give you a number that is absolutely startling. Do you realize that Warren Buffett, come back to me on this. Do you realize that Warren Buffett's company has you know how much cash they have on hand? I've researched this prior to the show. Warren Buffett's company has $137 billion cash on hand. I'm going to say that again. Warren Buffett's company has $137 billion of disposable cash waiting to be done with something. So when the dude drops 10B on a failed project from Dominion, that 10B is not even 10% of the cash he's got in his bank. I'm going to say it again. Buffett dropped $10 billion to acquire afterthought assets from Dominion for pennies on the dollar. And that $10 billion he dropped isn't even 10% of the cash that he has in his war chest. We may have a foe, we may have an adversary, we may have someone you're going to fight that is even scarier than Dominion. And I'm going to cut to the chase. 89-year-old Warren Buffett, he says this: you have fear when people are greedy, and you get greedy when people are afraid. I'm going to say it again. Warren Buffett, you have fear as an investor or as a money manager when people are greedy. That means stock market's up, people dropping ducats. Oh, we're making bank on the S&P. We're making bills buying airline stocks. Look at the NASDAQ. It's at an all-time high. We're stacking paper. Warren Buffett said, oh my God, if people are going to do that, if the Barstool president, Dave Portnoy, is making money left and right just by throwing cash in the market, I'm taking a timeout. I'm pulling my money from the airlines. I'm going to sit on the sideline, and I'm going to chill with my $137 billion war chest while these fools drive up the market. Now the market's flatting a little bit, and he senses opportunity, and he gets greedy, and he buys something from Dominion because Dominion is getting hit with federal lawsuits and federal fines. Dominion is losing the battle of PR in the press, and Dominion is being lambasted for eminent domain, and Dominion is being crucified for stealing people's lands, and Dominion is getting a PR smear campaign by Americans from coast to coast. So Warren Buffett says, oh my gosh, Dominion's getting hit from the federal government. Dominion's getting hit at the local level. Dominion's been working on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline for 6 years. Dominion has a couple of $1 billion into this project, and it's nowhere near the finish line. Why don't I go in there, take up their debt service, take up their debt, buy their debt, and why don't I offer them pennies on the dollar for something that they've done for 6 years and invested billions of dollars of their money in? You know what? That is called brilliant business, Warren. He's buying distressed assets at a distressed time for the economy. And he's going to wait for it to turn, and now he controls 18 freaking percent. I'm going to give you the exact paragraph from CNBC. With the purchase, Berkshire Hathaway Energy will carry 18% of all interstate natural gas transmission in the United States, up from 8%. I'm going to straight up say it right now. This is a hell of a lot scarier foe than Dominion Energy for Nelson County. But I'm going to welcome Richard Averitt to the program. A businessman, a visionary, a leader, a man that undoubtedly has helped lead this charge against Dominion and the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. He's going to join us in about 40 seconds on the show. Dede Smith after Richard Averitt. After the Dede Smith interview, we will hear from a dad that homeschools his kids and the challenges presented from homeschooling his children while running a business and while just trying to maintain sanity. So we'll hear from a dad homeschooling his kids after Dede Smith. After Dede Smith, I'll tell you about the third Confederate statue that's been removed from Richmond. If Dr. Terrian Richardson, if Mayor Nakiah Walker, if Heather Hill, if Councilor Lloyd Snook, if Councilor Sina McGill, if Councilor Michael Payne, if these leadership in our community, if they don't have a plan that's transparent, that's upfront, that we know about of what they're going to do with the statues in this community, we have an issue. Because 60 miles down the road, we're watching Richmond recover from a war zone because of Confederate statue removal. City Council and City Hall give the plan of attack for moving the statues so we can have peace of mind in this community and say, this is what we're going to do. When you're transparent, the whole freaking campaign that Walker ran on was unmasking the illusion. It was transparency. How about some transparency on statue removal? This is just freaking common sense. Tell the community what you're going to do so the community doesn't get irritated. We're going to talk a $1.6 million investment into vaccines. We'll talk Governor Ralph Northam asking Daniel Snyder to change the Redskins' name. TikTok may not be allowed on U.S. soil anymore because it's owned by the Chinese, and the companies that got PPP money, that after Dede Smith, Judah Wickhauer, I'm reaching out to Richard Averitt now. Richard Averitt not only is a smart man, this dude is a sharp-dressed guy and a handsome guy as well. Richard Averitt's going to join us here. We got a guy that's a visionary, an entrepreneur, a dude who's got style and clothing, and what, this guy's a sharp, good-looking guy to boot over here. Richard Averitt, he's living the dream right now. Judah, let's welcome Richard Averitt to the program. You're live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country of the world. All right, so Richard, I see this interview playing like this. Maybe the first part, we celebrate a victory, and then the last part, you tell us what's coming down the pipe. Pun intended here. I'm getting out of your way here. When Dominion pieces out and the Atlantic Coast Pipeline gets squashed, what's Richard Averitt and family doing?
Well, first there were literal tears of joy, and then we went to our front porch and screamed at the top of our lungs that we won, together with my mom and dad and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and our kids. And then we popped a bottle of champagne, and we spent the rest of the night celebrating.
That's awesome.
And yesterday I spent a big part of the day just talking to the press about what's happened and where do we go. And next for us is getting our life back. I mean, we've just spent 6 years of our life fighting for nothing more than our constitutional rights to be left the hell alone. And here we are. And now we're going to get back to our life. We have a whole lot of free time that we didn't have a week ago. And we've got a resort project to start thinking about again and pursue. So these are really happy days for our family, and more importantly, for our whole community and the state of Virginia. And it should be really clear to say, we certainly played a role in this effort, but I mean, this was literally an effort of hundreds of people and tens of thousands of hours, and every single postcard, every protest, every tree sit, every lawyer who weighed in, every one of those things mattered and needs to be celebrated. And from our family, I can't even express how grateful we are for all of that work from so many people who didn't have property on the line, right? Who fought because they knew it was the right thing to do for whatever reason motivated them. But just for those of us who were having to face down the behemoth on our own property, we are so deeply grateful for all of that effort.
That was a beautiful start to this interview. Let's cut that into a highlight clip, Judah, and let's play that on tomorrow's show, because Richard Averitt's words speak volumes in this community here. So this is basically what happened. A bunch of Davids got together, a bunch of Davids aggregated their efforts, and they basically said, how are you going to take our land from us that's been in our family for so long and just do something on our land? I mean, it just pisses me off thinking about it right now. If someone came in and tried to take my land from me to put a pipeline in there, I would lose it's a family show. I'm going to leave it right there. So a bunch of Davids get together and they squash Goliath. Now we have another Goliath coming in, Warren Buffett. We'll get to that in a matter of moments here. How about you and your family personally, the sweat, equity, and hardship of 6 years? Can I ask you the money spent? Is that a fair question?
It's certainly over six figures. And, I want to be really clear about something, Jerry. It's really obvious to me that we sit in a really interesting place of luck and success, and some would say privilege. And we had those resources to spend, and I think we were happy. It was one of the tools in our disposal that we don't often have in these fights, because mostly these pipeline companies purposefully choose poor and disenfranchised rural communities, often of Black and Brown and Native American people, as we all know, because they can't do what we have just done. They simply don't have the capacity and the resources and the family unit and the community unit to do it. And we see this as an obligation. I owe a deep debt of gratitude to my mom and dad, who frankly really helped provide the lion's share of those economic resources to make it possible for us to fight like we did. And so it's a lot, but it doesn't even hold a candle to the emotional and mental strain of this over all these years. And yet we fought with the knowledge that even if we lost, our family would be okay. But man, that's not true for a lot of these folks in Union Hill and the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina and others, right? Those folks, like, this was existential for them in a way that I can't even imagine. And so that emotional stress is massive. I mean, I was telling somebody yesterday, my daughter was 11 years old when this pipeline was announced. She's now 17. And if you think about that, those are really formative years of her life, right? And the narrative that she will tell for the rest of her life was that during this big window, her family spent nights and weekends at rallies and at protests.
You're talking opportunity cost.
Yeah, massive, massive. And so, you know, I mean, the upside is she also watched her parents spend 6 years of their life fighting like hell for something they believed in and winning, right? And that matters too.
That is the highlight clip. That is the highlight clip I want to play tomorrow. I think your daughter, and I don't know your daughter, I think your daughter's going to come out even stronger woman, seeing her mom and dad go toe-to-toe with others, your leadership here. I think she's going to come up even stronger saying, look at what these people did against corporate America.
Yeah. Well, and you know, for us, you asked what's next for the Averitt family. One of the things I want to make sure we make clear, we you know, like so many things in this world today, we're having our eyes open to things that we didn't have context for before. And our family is certainly counts ourselves in that group of folks. And that started 6 years ago with this pipeline. I didn't know a damn thing about pipelines. You know, I knew about Kilo and eminent domain, but only loosely. I didn't believe that what we've just lived through was possible in America. And as I said, we now have an understanding. This isn't new. This has been happening for decades, maybe centuries, right? And predominantly to people who didn't have what we had to fight. And so once we got to that point, once we had that awareness, our family took the position that beating the ACP is step number one. And it's critical. It's critical to us for our own homestead and our business interests, et cetera. But changing the laws that make this possible is step two. Like, we've got to fix this wrong in our government, and it goes all the way through eminent domain reform, and it probably goes all the way to Citizens United and Campaign for. I mean, we get a really big picture, but for sure, we got to fix the Natural Gas Act and eminent domain reform for for-profit ventures, and that means the next one on the list is the MVP. And so we've celebrated on Sunday, we rested yesterday, and tomorrow we're going to be back at it, making damn sure that we get Federal Energy Regulatory Commission reform and reform that because the exact same injustices are playing out down there. And God bless our friends down there. They have fought as hard as they could. But that company has been even more egregious than Dominion. They just had a damn the torpedoes mentality, cut the trees, sued everybody at once. And, you know, they have really wrecked a lot of our natural landscape down there. But that pipe is not in operation yet, and it never should be.
Richard Averitt is killing this interview. He's live in Nelson County. You have 2 Nelson County Boards of Supervisors watching. You have a state delegate that's active watching right now, an Albemarle County Board of Supervisor watching. I'm going to throw this to you. So you know a heck of a lot more about this than me. Buffett spends roughly $10 billion on this. Not all of that is for the actual infrastructure. Some of that is the debt service that he's buying there. This dude is sitting on a war chest of close to $140 billion. He's an 89-year-old investor that buys distressed assets at the right time. I think that's clearly what he's trying to do here. I'm going to get out of your way. What's going to happen? What do you see? What do the tea leaves tell you?
So there's a lot of fear about this right now in our community, and I get it. And I could be wrong about this, but I actually want to propose an entirely different narrative.
Okay.
From what I can tell, I'm not finding any evidence that one of the things Buffett bought was the detritus from the ACP. The ACP itself is not an existing project. The ACP as a company went away. They have no physical asset. They have easements, but those easements are a broad patchwork of obligations and opportunities, including things like, you know, my sister signed an easement in order to negotiate away an access road that would have crippled the neighborhood in front of us and us if they won the pipeline. And so a calculated move over a year ago was to do that. But that easement can never be sold to another entity, will not transfer ownership, and is canceled at any time that they don't build the pipeline and she gets the land back. Now, there will be a lot of easements that don't have those clauses. We had good counsel on that. But there are a whole variety of conditions around those. So from what I know about just being a couch watcher of Buffett over the years, you're right. He buys distressed assets at opportune times. The entire natural gas ecosystem is in a
it's going to the pooper.
Because of everything else, right? So it's all depressed right now. But I also think that what's happening, and Dominion in particular, is beleaguered, right? And so what they sold was all of their transportation assets, right? Like basically they're out of the movement of gas. They'll continue to be in the distribution environment to their customers, the selling and Notice they said they prefer the regulated markets. Read captive ratepayers where he
has a monopoly.
Positions do what we want. Yeah. So we'll get back to that. But what I think Hathaway did is buy the other 4 pipelines that he bought and a part of Cove Point. And here's my bet. My bet is that he's expecting a Biden presidency. He sees what's happening with pipelines all over the country right now. They're getting hammered, right? He knows that under a Biden presidency, that's going to get worse, not better. We're probably not going to see any new pipeline projects during that presidency. That's a 4-year run, right? We have a market globally where natural gas there's a huge value proposition, but very quickly all the renewables are catching up to a point where even in places like Japan and China and others, they'll get beyond natural gas's peak, right? And so he says, okay, we have a scarce asset. We have a limited number of pipelines. We got a lot of gas to move, and there's no more of them coming online for a while. We have a limited runway to get that gas to market. We buy that at a low dollar value today, and under a Biden presidency, the value of controlling that infrastructure goes way the hell up. And he doesn't care whether he's selling it to his 12 million customers here domestically or shipping it through Cove Point to China. But he now controls a market where there isn't going to be any more new pipelines for a while, if ever. That's what I think.
Interesting. Richard Averitt dropping knowledge bombs here. How about the temperature in God's country, in Nelson County here? Others around. What's the temperature? Give us the boots on the street.
I mean, there's tons of joy. There's a lot of shock. There's a lot of this fear you're talking about. I think people like there's a lot we don't
uncertainty.
know. Uncertainty is, and after everything we've lived in, the uncertainty of a roller coaster for years, it would be easy to feel that way. But I want you to hear loud and clear, I don't have that fear. We're moving forward with what we're doing. I don't believe it's ever coming back here. And I think, frankly, the work that SELC and Appalachian Mountain Advocates and Wild Virginia and everybody else just put forward, if anybody read that 64-page rebuttal of Dominion's request for a 2-year extension, it is a brilliant piece of work, and it lays out fact after fact after fact that should stand in their way. I don't think there was any chance of Dominion getting a 2-year extension without redoing the draft environmental impact statement. That would take years, and it would require significant rerouting of the pipeline, which most likely moves it out of Nelson anyway. I mean, I just think that project was ill-conceived from the beginning. It was rushed, and Dominion took their typical bravado, believing they had more or less bought the state of Virginia and could railroad everybody, and they got caught.
And how they're buying, he's so right, how they're buying the state of Virginia, he means politicians. They're buying politicians through campaign donations. Your boy Jesse Rutherford is loving what he's hearing. He says, come buy houses in Nelson County. All right, I think, and we do
Terry, this is real.
Yeah.
I was on for a run this morning before it got too hot, and reveling in the beauty of Nelson County again. And I ran past a group of women from the neighborhood in front of me, and one of them is a real estate agent. And we were talking about this very thing. She asked the same question, do we think that Buffett's going to come in here and build this pipeline? And I said, I don't believe so. And she told me that she had clients coming to look at a piece of property in Nelson County today that was a 70-acre parcel on sale for $299,000. Quite a value.
Yeah.
But the market's been scared, right? And yesterday, the agent called her and said, hey, we just raised the price $150,000 now that the pipeline's dead.
Oh my gosh! That has got to be a sizzle reel. That shows you marketplace dynamics. We do a real estate show on this network with Keith Smith, he and Jonas Smith. He was talking about, he was looking at stuff that was going on the market Friday to Saturday after this announcement from Buffett. He is predicting, he sees the Nelson County market is about to boom, potentially a 25 to 30% spike, and you are just backing it up right there.
Yeah, I totally believe that. I got a dear friend who lives out in Deer Valley, in Utah. And in many ways, they live in an environment that is different but similar to Nelson in that they're in a more remote place. There's some resort atmosphere. Of course, it's more developed than we are, but on the outskirts of that, he said for the last 9 months, the real estate market, or not 9 months, last 4 months, the real estate market there has just gone nuts. Real estate agents there are no longer they're purposefully underpricing a property. So they'll put a $3 million property on the market, and by the end of the day, it'll be under contract for 3.6 because there was a bidding war on it. He said there's all this money fleeing big cities because of COVID, because of the race relation issues and the fear around that, because all these changes. And a place like Nelson is exactly where you want to be in a pandemic. So I think it's right. I think this is the beginning of really great stuff for this county.
Nelson County has access to fiber now, fiber internet, and its government, guys, is very physically conservative. Jesse Rutherford, a board of supervisors, has come on this show and said Nelson County has a war chest of money to withstand this pandemic. Nelson County, God's country, is looking like a hot spot for you guys if you're looking to buy some real estate. You got a lot of folks watching here, Richard. We are a platform of hope and positivity. We are cautious optimists. You get a final word anywhere you want to go with a lot of folks watching.
Well, I think our family got into this fight over eminent domain and property rights, and we learned a lot of things over time. As I said, that I believe in the environmental justice issues. I believe that fracking is a bad decision for us. I think we've seen plenty of evidence that. I believe I've experienced myself having the privilege of putting in solar this year and having $0 electric bills the last 2 months in a row. I believe, and my solar payment is less than my energy payment was before.
And on top of that, Richard, it's fixed. It's not going to increase year over year because you have it's like owning a house, and you're not by the short and curlies with Dominion.
Yeah, everything about it I like. So the point is, I think there are many reasons that are very valid for fighting this. But at its absolute core, the thing that I think we've got to see more of and more unity around, and particularly I think we've seen a significant lack of conservative voices saying, hey, look, even if you're pro-natural gas, even if you believe we need it for a long time as a bridge fuel, or you think it's good for the economy, you can be all of those things and still be against the taking of private citizens' land for a multi-billion-dollar profit-generating machine. And that is what Dominion is, right? And that's what this project would have done. And the ratepayers were going to be saddled with an $8 billion bill plus $1.5 billion nearly in profit. And it didn't matter what the gas cost or if Dominion ever pumped much of it through there. So we are subsidizing a system to make profit for folks at the other end. And that's just bad. That's bad government. It's bad business. Everything about it is wrong. And in this country, we're talking about our constitutional rights being violated to wear masks. For God's sakes, what about your constitutional rights to keep your property, right? Like, you want to rail about rights to own guns and free speech and wear masks. Where are you going to do any of those things if you don't have property to stand on? So I want to see a groundswell of energy, because this exact problem is happening down south of us on the Mountain Valley Pipeline, and we need to make sure that right gets wrong that wrong gets righted as well.
Dude, this was one of the best interviews we've ever done. This guy, Nelson County, lucky to have people like Richard Averitt. I know it was a team effort, but he undoubtedly one of the leaders here in the charge, he and his family. Thank you for your time here, Richard. We appreciate you very, very much, sir.
Thank you, Jerry, for everything you do.
You have a good one.
Thanks, man. You too.
All right, Richard Averitt, boys and girls. Judah Wickower, I'm going to go to Dede Smith, former vice mayor, city of Charlottesville now, an ambassador for education, a champion for equity. Dede Smith is going to join us. It's ringing. Give me a thumbs up when we can welcome Dede on the show. Judah is giving me the thumbs up. And Dede, if we can get your camera on so we can see you, that would be amazing. Because I got so much I want to cover. There we go. All right, Dede's got the Beatles in the background. All right, so Dede Smith.
I was trying to turn my Facebook on my phone off.
You're loud and clear. Everyone's watching. You got a Central Virginia-wide audience. You have 2 city councilors, 1 Albemarle County Board of Supervisor watching, and folks on Nelson County's board watching you now. All right, let me get out of your way here. Your school board meeting last night. What were your takeaways?
Wow. I mean, it was amazing. And I'd just like to say, I can't believe you put me on after.
But if there's anyone I know.
I have a message for him. I really want him to get on the dam removal bandwagon.
Ooh.
It's going across the country, and American Rivers is leading it. So that's just my message to Richard. He could totally make it happen. Anyway, so the school situation, I mean, isn't it fascinating? And the school board meeting was fascinating because there was so much public input. You know, I was on the school board for 6 years back in the early 2000s, and we would have meetings where hundreds of people would come, and we just haven't seen that since then. And it really felt that way yesterday, that there was so much public comment, and you don't want it to be, precipitated by a crisis, but that's what happens. That's how you get public comment. But what was the real interesting thing was to hear not only the public comments from teachers, but the surveys. And there are a lot of teachers who are not comfortable coming back in the fall, and the school board members are all over the map. They didn't take a vote last night, but I would love to have seen what it would be.
Right?
If they did. But, one train of thought here, one line of thought is that there could start in the fall, and it could just fall apart so quickly the moment somebody gets infected, or, God forbid, worse. And why go down that path? So, I have certainly strong feelings about this, because I had suggested to the school board long ago, actually now, way before COVID, that they should just scrap their whole system.
Really?
Just start over. And we have such a great opportunity right now. Just scrap the system. They're trying to make already it was ill-designed to begin with, fit into, it's a square peg in a round hole.
Sure.
I mean, basically, they know it's not going to work virtually for even those who were succeeding to begin with. I mean, for many of them. And God knows the children who were struggling, before the COVID crisis, what's now being called the COVID slide, being called an educational emergency by very well-known educational advocates. I say, start over. Let's start over and look at what our goals are. And those goals should be that every child can read, write, and do arithmetic at least on grade level. And we are so far from that right now. We were before, as I said, before COVID. So I would really like to see them explore a completely different model.
What does that model look like?
Well, for one thing, I think in the fall it really does have to look virtual, or I'm not sure. Actually, I say that I'm not sure that's true. I would say you've got to really focus on those children who can learn virtually, probably who would prefer to. So here I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I do have an idea.
Okay.
Actually, I think I suggested this last night at the school board meeting. After listening, I raised my hand in the little Zoom and said, this is fascinating. Why don't we take the funds the city gives a loan to the school system, which is over $12,000 a child every year, and let's give it to the families for a couple things. One is they need care. They need child care, or else they're not going to be able to work, for many of them. Some can do it. Some, it'll work for them. But those workers who are already working low-paid jobs, who sometimes work more than one job, who have high-risk jobs now in the COVID era, so they can get care and they can get tutoring. I have been pushing tutoring, one-on-one professional tutoring for a long time now for those children who are behind. And if we could use our funds in just a completely different way. So anyway, I know that's a little, all over the place, but I just don't think it's working. It wasn't working before, and it's certainly not going to work virtually.
Okay, we agree 100% on that. We have a lot of teachers watching right now. Shannon Gillikin, who was one of the 2 teachers that started this letter, is going to join us on the show tomorrow to spotlight the teacher's perspective, guys. Okay, so let me. I have so much I want to throw to you here. You have experience on the school board. These are normal people. These are like everyday people here. I mean, can you even put in perspective the plight of a school board member right now?
I feel so sorry for them to a certain degree. I've, never been terribly impressed. Some of them have been on that school board for more than a decade, and they have some of the worst scores in the state. I mean, they're for our children who are most at risk, who are what we call our low-income children, who in this community are mostly children of color, and we are, 50% who can't read, write, and do arithmetic at grade level in Charlottesville.
Wow.
That between city funding and state and federal funding is close to $20,000 a child, and you can't teach them to read. I'm sorry. The system is wrong for the population we have. And that inequality is baked into the model we have. The model the system uses today is the same one they used 20, 30 years ago when my kids were in the system. And it wasn't working then, and it's not working now. And so, I get off on that again? But, I just think we have to start over, and it has to be about learning. It has to be about basics. But again, sort of going back to my private tutoring and care, it would make a lot of opportunity for teachers who don't want to be in the classroom.
Right. They're saying it, guys. And the list of teachers.
The teacher's going to say, "You're putting me out of a job." No, you're giving you a different model on how to teach children. Our Charlottesville school system has 4 adults for every. One adult for every 4 children. There's a lot of adults. Not all of them are teachers, but a lot of them are. They could be retrained in tutoring. There's all different levels, obviously, of tutoring. And this is, quite frankly, Jerry, this is the secret sauce in Charlottesville. One of the reasons you see this huge academic divide between the well-off and the not-so-well-off is tutoring. And nobody likes to talk about it. But there's a whole lot of children who are not low income and who are performing because when they are not, their parents seek out not remediation in the schools. They don't want UVA students tutoring their kids. They go to professional tutors. It's a big business in this community, and that business is not reaching our low income kids. And so this is one way, again, something I've been pushing for a long time, give that resource that we know works. They're businesses. They go out of business if it doesn't work. And it's been tapped into to all these high-performing kids have been tapping into it for years and years and years. Give that opportunity to our children who are struggling. Why wouldn't this community be proud if all of its children could read, write, do arithmetic, pass those science and history rather than 50%.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do here with this network. Kenneth Martin just shared your appearance on the show and is giving you some props right now. Like and share the show for Dede Smith. I got so many questions. Okay, let me throw this to you here. Virtual education, elementary age kids. My kid is not quite there. He can't do anything for 30 seconds without losing his focus here, and that's every kid's here. How is a kid expected to learn virtually here when the path for virtual education hasn't even been created? I'm going to get out of your way on this.
nobody has shown any evidence that it works at all. You can point fingers to, particularly to older kids, say, oh, my child does this, but most people are saying this is not working for my child. Besides the fact that as our community opens up, and it is opening up with work, people are, they need, even if they're working at home, they can't be there with their child. I mean, what are the teachers all going to do with their children? Somebody's got to be with the children. And I hate to say that schools are childcare, but for all practical purposes, that is one of the functions that they have served. And if we don't have that, we're going to have to find that piece of the puzzle too. And, and that's why I say, there's so much money in education right now, that I just think we need to rethink it. We really just, as I say, just throw it all out, and let's look at models that actually work across the world. Forget across the nation. There's lots of models across the world, and they vary a lot.
Sure.
About what produces well-educated children.
Sure. You're a champion for equity and democratic education and raising test scores, and you have the credentials and experience to back up what you're saying here. This is a topic that we've covered closely on the show. Every private school in Central Virginia and around Charlottesville, Dede, is opening for in-person education. On top of that, the private schools have said to their parents, we are not going to let you out of contracts because of COVID, because we need your tuition money to keep the machine running. So they're having in-person education, many of them outside under tents with chairs and desks 6 feet apart, social distance, because they know they can leave the tents and chairs overnight without fear of vandalization. That came up yesterday. Superintendent said, we can't do that. People would destroy this stuff on the public schools if we left this stuff outside. So I'm going to get out of your way on this topic. This is the fear I have, and this is obviously a loaded question, but you have the experience and to back this up. If we have, I don't know the exact number, X amount of kids that are learning in a private school in-person scenario, and X amount of kids that are going to public schools not doing that, what kind of impact will this have?
Well, I don't even know. It'll have the same impact it's always had.
Interesting.
The private school population, which looks different in some cases and not so much in other cases than the public school experience. But one of the most important things you said was about the contracts, because that's something that the public schools are not threatened with. The city council isn't threatening to take their money away. They could lose some state funding if they don't have the population, which is I find a fascinating question, and I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about it. The current chair of the school board said something recently about, we have 4,500 children. They don't have 4,500 children. 300 some of those children were coming in from the county. Are they really going to still do that if it's virtual? Why? Why would you pay to go to the city? Pay to go to these private schools? I don't know. But, again, I really want to get back to the idea of trying to fit this antiquated system that doesn't work. It's basically depends on parents teaching their children the fundamentals. Scrap it. It is really time, and it's a great opportunity to think about a different model where we're really focusing on educating children with the skills. And at the lower grades, they're so fundamental. You can't get anywhere if you can't read well in this
world. Amen.
In this world.
Yeah.
You can't do it. And this is now finally a lot of the pundits, national pundits, are coming out and saying this. Saying, David Brooks said it recently, just say, if anybody thinks we're going to recover from this racial injustice, question against of COVID without education, you're crazy. He didn't say that.
Sure.
But that's what he was saying. I mean, who would think you can do that? We'll never get out of it if we do not figure out a system that reaches children who don't have the resources to reach them someplace else. And there's a lot of children, I mean, especially in this world, who have issues other than just it's not just not being read to at night. I mean, that's what they want you to believe.
Sure.
That somehow it's this, attention from parents that makes the difference. No, there are a lot of children who have barriers to learning that the schools should be able to address, but they're not addressing them. Clearly, they're not addressing them. Again, you have resources, you seek those elsewhere. You don't have resources, your child doesn't pass minimum standards. And so, I would like to see this, again, the schools model successful systems, where.
I'm going to throw this to you, Dede, and you're killing this interview here. How are we going to? Here's the question: How easy is it to flip the switch to virtual curriculum in education? So you talk, and I'm not trying to marginalize, I'm not trying to throw shade on anyone. Depending on who you talk to, many parents, most parents, a lot of parents, teachers included, said the spring semester, because of how abruptly it went from in-person to virtual, in a lot of ways was a wasted semester. So the teachers are asking, and I think it's great, they're asking, give us a plan, make the decision now, so we can learn this digital and virtual infrastructure, so we can be empowered and better equipped to teach these kids, because the tea leaves say it's going to a virtual education here in the fall. How quickly or easily is it to flip the switch? What are the teachers going through here with virtual and digital education?
Well, I don't know, because I've never done it. My husband's doing it with UVA. I mean, he had to switch to his virtual, so I've watched it happen. But the teachers have been doing this for March, April, May, 3+ months. And now we're hearing they need to learn to do it. I don't think it's a matter of learning to do it. I think the question is much more fundamental than that. That is, can children of all ages learn this way? Can a household, is it equipped, are households equipped to even have their children access virtual? What about multi-children and multi-age households that don't have multiple computers?
Or don't have the internet.
Or don't have the internet. I mean, that's obviously that's a huge, there's a lot of people who don't, like some much younger person was just telling me that, say, well, people don't have laptops anymore. They just use their phones. I was like, wow. I mean, there are so many barriers to doing it this all virtual. I think it's just a little crazy. And I really think we need to explore models that combine, care with tutoring, and on a one-on-one or one individual with a small group or whatever. That would be my choice to do, particularly for the interim. And if we could get everybody up to speed, and a lot of these private tutors are equipped to train, and UVA,
sure.
McGuffey Reading Center, are equipped to train, and we have teachers. We have teachers who could be trained in that kind of remedial reading, writing, and then there's a whole cadre of tutors that do the higher end chemistry and biology and history and things like that. I mean, this community,
we figure it out.
We'd figure
Okay,
it out.
how about this?
It'd be much better than not figuring it out.
Amen. Do what you got to do is what she's saying. Do what you got to do, guys. All right, Dede, you got a lot of people watching. Final word, show is yours. Any topic, anything we learn from you. What are we missing, or any message that needs to be out there?
Well, I think that what, as the nation explores the question of equity, a question that we in theory have been exploring for the last couple of years. It is time for that energy, those demands to come to the education system. That's my greatest disappointment in all of this, is that people haven't used that same protesting in the streets to say, educate our children. Because again, without it, we will never see equity.
I love that. I love that. Let's turn that into a highlight clip for tomorrow's show. Dede, thank you. You're amazing. Thank you
so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Dede Smith, boys and girls, she killed this interview. Thank you, Dede Smith. A couple things that we want to get out. We're going to have Shannon Gillikin. She is a freaking rising star, a star right now. A leader in the teacher community from Jackson Via. She helped lead the charge for this letter that was presented to the school board tomorrow. So the teacher's perspective tomorrow, I see a number of teachers watching the show. This comment from a teacher in Fluvanna County, Jerry, I give it less than 5% that we have in-person education in Fluvanna, and I expect sports to be canceled for the next school year. So this is a Fluvanna County teacher saying, I expect sports canceled for this school year, and a very low percentage that we're going to have in-person education in Fluvanna County Public Schools. We'll have some of these topics with Shannon tomorrow. An idea that's kind of percolating, and it has, look, no idea or no path to, no strategy that's going to be implemented is going to be 100% right. It can't be. Okay, there's just too many collisions and outside factors colliding at now that is just making the marketplace just very nebulous, uncertain, and the type of dynamic that's not a good dynamic. So no decision is going to be 100% right. One of them I was talking about with my wife, and it was in fact her idea, and it was an interesting one, was what if the school, the educating, was now done by neighborhood in some ways, where teachers go to certain neighborhoods instead of classrooms, and you leverage open spaces in neighborhoods to educate children. These teachers go to this neighborhood, these teachers go to this neighborhood, these teachers go to this neighborhood. You can use soccer fields, you can do the open space in neighborhoods, the cul-de-sacs, whatever it may be. You solve some conundrum, you solve some problems if you do this. You have a major issue when it comes to school buses. We're now asking kids to be one kid per seat on a school bus, which diminishes the capacity of the school bus. So many parents need their kids to get to school on a school bus because they're working. Okay? So the concept is, what if the neighborhoods themselves turn into the schools? There's a Johnson Village school. There's a Belmont school. There's a school on the south side. Now this is what the naysayers are going to say immediately. The naysayers are going to say this: if you do schooling by neighborhood, you're going to have essentially reinforced the class system. Is there going to be the Friendship Court neighborhood? And is there going to be the Ivy neighborhood? Is there going to be the West Haven neighborhood and the Farmington or Glenmore neighborhood? Will there be the Woolen Mills neighborhood? And will there be the Crozet? I mean, you see what I'm saying? So the idea of neighborhood schooling, the fatal flaw with that is the potential lack of diversity. The pros of neighborhood education, where the schooling is not done in the class. The teachers don't want to go to school. The teachers don't want to go to school. What world do we live in where the boss of a company, the owner of a company says, hey, employee, you have to sign this contract. Give me your John Hancock on this contract. And this John Hancock that you're going to give me basically says, I will not sue my boss or the owner of this company if I go to work and I get sick on work time. I will not sue him or her. And if you don't sign this contract, you don't get to go back to work. Do you understand if that happened in the corporate world, what would happen? It would be freaking lawsuits left and right. Sign this contract that keeps me from having any exposure if you get sick in my company on the clock. But that's what we're asking teachers to do. That's BS. So the teachers say we don't want to go into the classrooms. We don't want to go into the classrooms. The parents are saying, a lot of them, we can't do virtual education because we need you to educate and watch our kids so we can pay our rent, so we can pay our mortgage, so we can put food on the table. If mom and dad both don't go to work, we can't pay the bills. So one idea we were brainstorming last night over a couple of cold cocktails, and I had a tequila margarita with some OJ and some grenadine and tequila sunrise that really put a little hair on my chest last night. Okay, it was that kind of day. So one of the ideas we were brainstorming is what happens if the schools and the teachers go to the neighborhoods. You solve the bus problem, you potentially can leverage outside, you solve the daycare problem, the watching of the kids problem. The knock on this concept is the lack of diversity among races and black and white and brown kids in the community. You obviously know, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize, that a lot of neighborhoods in the community are segregated by folks looking like each other. So that's a fatal flaw. But that concept solves the transportation issue. That concept solves the teachers not want to teaching in the building issue. Okay? And that also solves the in-person education issue. If you can bring the schools to the neighborhood, you have a Johnson Village school, a Belmont school, a 10th and Page school, you have a Prospect school, a Woolen Mills school, you have a Greenbrier school. The teachers go to the neighborhoods. I'll talk about it tomorrow with Shannon Gillikin. She's going to join us on the show. God, we're already out of time? How are we already out of time? Shoot. All right, let's do this 90 seconds. I got a conference call with an important client in 2 minutes. Let's go pick up the tempo on this. I'm going to run headlines quickly. Are you ready for this, Judah? All right, let's go to Richmond, the removal of the statue. Headline for you. Get the headline on screen and then come back to me. Statue of Confederate General Jeb Stuart removed from Richmond. This is the third statue Confederate removed from the city of Richmond. I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again until I'm blue in the face. Charlottesville City Councilors Mayor Walker, Councilor Hill, Councilor Snook, Councilor Payne, Councilor McGill, Dr. Richardson, and Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. If you do not offer us a clear-cut path of what you're going to do with the statues and removal later this summer, you're going to have friction in this community. Say something, do something, and show some freaking leadership, please. Next headline. Let's go to Governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, is now telling Daniel Snyder that you have to change the name. Furthermore, Walmart and Target have pulled Redskins stuff from Walmart and Target. Now, Nike has pulled, FedEx, the naming rights of the stadium, says change their name. Walmart and Target won't sell Redskins merchandise. Daniel Snyder's feeling pressure from everywhere, including the ownership group in his office. 3 minority owners, guys. Owners that don't have as much power of him as the organization. He owns 60%. 3 minority owners have hired an investment bank to potentially sell their stake in the Redskins because Daniel Snyder is an inept owner, or at least according to them. Next headline comes from CNBC. TikTok potentially banned on U.S. grounds. There's so many TikTok fans out there. There's issues between China and the United States, and Trump is throwing gas on that fire. Chinese own TikTok. You're going to start seeing potentially foreign relations impact the real estate on this screen, which is nuts to me. A lot of restaurant chains receive PPP money, including PF Chang's and TGI Fridays. Huge corporate chains getting PPP money when it's supposed to be for small businesses. That's some BS if I've ever seen some BS in my life. And how about Yeezy? Kanye West, who's running for president, getting money from the PPP. Good night, boys and girls. Good night. And the final headline, $1.6 billion from the federal government goes to Novavax COVID vaccine, basically a group that is a front runner to get a vaccine. Good night, dear God, dear Lord. I am a God-fearing man, and you've been so wonderful to all of us. Please, 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 God, please, we're so grateful with what you have blessed us with. We're so grateful. And we have our backs against the wall, and we're in a time of need like we've ever been before. If you can help the folks that are coming up with this vaccine to get some clarity of thought and to get us to the finish line a lot quicker, we would truly be grateful. Amen. I'm Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille Show. I'll see you tomorrow with Shannon Gillikin. Have a good afternoon.